Hello everyone and welcome to my Facebook Live. I'm at Valerie. Funding is going to contribute to their decision on how they're going to respond to your requests and to work with you at your IEP meetings. So unless a parent becomes an expert on their child's disability and learns what their parent rights are under IDEA, then you're not going to be served properly and your child's IEP is not going to be developed appropriately to meet their needs. So tonight I'm going to give you 10 really great tips on how to learn to start becoming the coach of your IEP team and to start learning how to drive your child's IEP meetings. Okay, so number one is I talked about this at, I think it was my last Facebook Live, on working with your program specialist or your district representative. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to call or you're going to email your program specialist or whoever your district representative might be, and you're going to make sure you invite them and confirm that they're going to be in attendance at your upcoming IEP meeting to facilitate your meeting. So that's the number one biggest priority that you want to do, is confirm the attendance of a district representative at your upcoming meeting. Number two, you're going to discuss with them that you're going to request a 2-hour time frame. Now, if you don't request a 2-hour time frame, they're not going to give you a 2-hour time frame. They're going to give you 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, and if you're lucky, you might get an hour and a half, but most likely you won't. You absolutely won't be getting a 2-hour time frame. So when you think about it, I'm sure you feel very rushed at your IEP meetings. There's not a whole lot of discussion going on. There's a lot of information that's thrown at you, and then you're asked to sign your IEP at the end of the meeting. This is not an appropriate way. This isn't a way for a parent to drive their IEP or become the coach of your IEP team. IEPs need to be at least a 2-hour time frame. There's so much information that needs to be reviewed, especially in an annual. There's no way that at an annual IEP that you can review the old goals and look at have they been met or have they not. Review the new goals, what they're offering for the upcoming year. Look at all the services they're going to offer you, review the accommodations, review your child's present levels of performance. All those things can't be done in less than a 2-hour time frame, and you're going to be to be in attendance at every single IEP meeting. And if they're not in attendance, then that's a violation. Is not going to be in attendance, and now I have the opportunity to say, you know what, I really need my speech and language pathologist there. I have concerns about my child's speech progress. I have concerns about the goals. I want to request increase of services. I want to talk to my speech and language pathologist about whatever you want to discuss with them. So if you have those feelings that it's not appropriate to excuse that person from your once-a-year annual IEP, you can say, no, I don't agree to excuse them, and we need to either reschedule the meeting or that team member needs to be in attendance. And then they can go back and they can say, speech and language pathologist, the mom doesn't want to excuse you. Can you make arrangements to be at the meeting or the date and the time? And then you sign it, parent. And then you might also add some other, if you have any concerns or requests or anything else you want to tell your program specialist or your case carrier or your principal. But that must be done 24 hours prior to your meeting. And then boom, you're done and you get to tape record your meeting. And I talked in my other Facebook Live the benefits of tape recording your IEP meeting. It's best practices for parents to always tape record every IEP meeting. Number 7 is you're going to provide your parent agenda to your program specialist. I also did a Facebook Live on that too. So when I say that, you can go back and look. Actually, all my Facebook Live videos are put on my YouTube channel. So if you missed it, you can go to my YouTube channel and you'll be able to see all these other Facebook Lives that I'm talking about on some of these issues here. So your parent agenda is when you provide your agenda to your program specialist on issues that you have that you want to discuss at your IEP meeting. So that can be requests that you might have, that you would like a discussion at the meeting, and then a resolution or an answer, an approval or a denial to that request. That's on your parent agenda. And then also any concerns you might have. So concerns and requests is on your parent agenda that you provide to your program specialist prior to the meeting. And then they must review all those things at your meeting and address them. Number 8 is you're going to request a draft of your IEP. And in that draft, you're going to receive the goals, last year's goals, the progress on those goals, if your child met the goals, made progress on the goals, or made no progress, did not meet the goal, okay? So that's the last year's goals. You're going to receive that in your draft. You're going to receive all the new goals they're offering you for the upcoming year. And then you have the opportunity to review the new goals. And you're familiar with those goals at your IEP meeting, so you already know what they're going to be offering you. You've already read them. And there might be something that you think is inappropriate, like a goal might be something that your child's already doing or very close to doing. So remember, goals are written from this date of the annual you're having now all the way to your next annual, a whole year in advance. So those goals better be pretty, a year's worth of growth you want to see. So the goal should be, in 1 year, I'd like to see my child doing this. So the goal might be not lofty enough. It might be, hey, my child's almost close to that. So that's all the growth you expect my child to have in a whole year. So you can read the goals. There also might be something that was left out. There might be a goal that you would like to have that's not there. So you can make your notes and you're prepared prior to the meeting because you've already read your goals, and it cuts down on time at your meeting as well because you're prepared because you already saw those goals. And it's your right for those things to be disclosed to you and prior to the meeting. But they're not going to do it unless you ask. You have to ask. In writing, of course, everything's in writing. Remember, if it wasn't written, it never happened. Another one of my Facebook Lives. Also, if your upcoming meeting is going to review any assessment reports, you might be receiving a psychoeducational assessment, a speech and language assessment, an occupational therapy assessment, a physical therapy assessment, a behavior assessment, any assessment. If you're going to be reviewing an assessment report at your IEP meeting, you have the right to have that disclosed to you prior to the meeting. So it's the same as if you want to provide the district with a doctor's information, diagnoses, or some kind of a report that you received from a service provider, a private agency, and if you just hand that to them at the IEP meeting, they're not going to review it at the IEP meeting because they didn't get it prior to the meeting and they weren't able to have it disclosed prior so that they could be prepared to look at it and interpret it or to include it or adopt it into your IEP. So the same goes the other ways for parents. You should be able to see everything prior to your meeting too, so you can be prepared to discuss it. You already were able to interpret it, look things up. What does this mean? You could even call that service provider and say, I don't understand this. Can you explain it to me so I'm prepared at the meeting? You have that right to receive whatever is going to be disclosed at your meeting, but they're not going to do it again unless you ask for it in writing. So you're going to request to your program specialist, I'd like a copy of my IEP draft prior to the meeting. Now, also what's in that draft are the accommodations that's in your child's IEP, as well as the present levels of performance, or PLOP, present levels of performance. So if you're not familiar with that, you should become familiar, because your present levels of performance is in every area, academically, behaviorally, and in all areas of the IEP, the present levels that your child is performing in that area. So it's basically a snapshot of where your child is in all areas of the IEP. So you should know where your child is, because the baselines that your child has at the present time is how they determine in 1 year they're going to be here, because right now they're here, and 1 year we expect them to be here, which is how they write goals. So it's the foundation for goals. It's also the foundation for services, because your present levels determine what goals are to be written. The goals determine the level of services that are provided to your child, and the services determine the placement for your child. So all these things are things that you should be familiar with, and if you're not, definitely start becoming familiar with it and making yourself educated on those things. And again, at the end of the meeting, when they want you to sign your IEP, again, what's the best practices for parents? You never sign your IEP at the IEP meeting. Why? Because you need to take your IEP home and read your IEP in the comfort of your own home, where you're not pressured, where there's not a whole IEP team, people sitting around the table waiting, watching you to sign your IEP. No, it's so important for you to go home, read it, be able to not be stressed out, read every word, understand what it says, and maybe you have changes you'd like to be made. Maybe there's something on your tape that they didn't include on the IEP. And then you can contact your program specialist and say, hey, we had this discussion, but I don't see anything in the notes that reflect that discussion. Or I don't see any in the notes that reflect the outcome of that discussion and what the IEP team decided. Because remember, if it's not written in your IEP, then nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to be implemented. And the last thing I want to touch on is, again, because it depends, every state is different, really every district is different. So in terms of your district representative, okay? So most districts have it in a hierarchy of administrators at the district office, your district rep. So the typical one that comes to a meeting is called a program specialist. And typically that's the title that they give it, but in different districts it might be a different title. So typically it's the program specialist, which is the first level of they're not an administrator, they're really the same level as an educator, as a teacher. So, but they facilitate IEP meetings at school sites, but they work at the district office, so they're from the special ed department. So they're knowledgeable on the IEP process, and they're knowledgeable on state and federal law. So it typically is program specialist. The next level up would be your coordinator, who is an administrator and who has much more authority to allocate funding and make decisions on big changes in your IEP. And above the coordinator is the director of special education. And then above the director is the SELPA director. And a SELPA director is a director that typically is chosen to oversee. They're the director over 2 or 3 or 4. It depends on the size of the district. But they are at the very top, the boss over the directors and everyone else in the special education department. So it would be one of those people, typically not a SELPA director would attend an IEP meeting, but a coordinator could, a director absolutely could, depending on the level of dissent and the level of the problems that you're having, how high profile your case might be. So these are some great tips for you to start implementing, to start learning about, start researching, so that you can become the coach of your IEP team and have a successful outcome for whatever meeting that you're having during this IEP season. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it helps you. I hope you start educating yourself to become an advocate for your child. Please like my Facebook page and so I can reach more parents with these Facebook Lives. And also, you can check out my website, and you can get my free ebook for parents, and it's called A Parent Handbook for a Healthy Mindset in Becoming a Parent Advocate, which will really help you kind of open the door to some of this information and start being motivated to become an expert on your child and your child's needs. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great evening. Bye.